Madam Speaker, and I don't think that the members on the other side are expecting that I'll be glowing in my commentary regarding their budget. If they are, I'm sorry to disappoint them. I was here in the House when the Minister of Finance gave the budget, and I was taken aback at one point when she seemed to be very proud. Matter of fact, she mentioned this twice about how the Liberals only spent $354.2 billion. And she said, well, we restrained ourselves by not spending extra $30 billion that we could have spent. That was in our projections. So, and that was repeated twice. And I thought, $354 billion. The fact of the matter, I appreciate this. Some water. The fact of the matter is that when the Liberals won the election, 2015, despite having fewer voters voting for them, nevertheless, that's our first past the post system, which is fine. They were given a surplus. It was a surplus situation that they were in. They said, okay, well, we're going to run a deficit of $10 billion, and it's like they never came through with their projection on any of their projections as far as the deficit goes. But anyways, this budget right here that the last year's spending, 2020 to 2021, was 35 times more than the deficit they projected when they first came into power. It's just, so it is. You know, it's like they've lost the sense of what the worth of money, worth of fiscal prudence. If Larry and Martha, or any other small business owner or Canadian, were to be borrowing money and spending all their savings as the Liberals here, they'd be in an extremely precarious state, probably evicted from their home. But the Liberals are taking us down this risky path, and they seem to actually be quite nonchalant about that. What's happened to nations across the world and throughout history, just go throughout history, the government doesn't seem to feel that this applies to Canada. No, we're Canadians. It's the laws and principles of the natural world, of science, which they like to affirm of, they also apply to economics. If someone steps over a cliff, they will go down, even if they're wearing a Canadian flag on their T-shirt. Madam Speaker, I think of Argentina. It's a large and beautiful country. I haven't been there, but I've read about it. Many natural resources and a large immigrant population, large European population that came there during the early 1900s and late 1800s. They made it for decades of the 20th century, outgrew Canada and Australia in population growth and per capita growth, and was one of the 10 richest nations in the world. But they made some poor economic choices and ended up defaulting 9 times on their economy. The inflation was in double digits and up to 5,000%. It wiped out the prosperity of the middle class. In the 1970s, they had a few years of sound economic policies, but then they started going further and further in deficits, and their external debt tripled in 3 years. People lost their savings. They said, well, that's Argentina. Well, let's go a few thousand kilometers north to Venezuela, okay? Venezuela is another story. It has the largest reserves of oil in the world. It was the wealthiest nation in South America. In 1998, President Chavez was elected, and his vision was to greatly expand social services, to take people out of poverty, to implement his socialist agenda. Well, we know now how that has fared. 5 million people have fled that nation. People have gone hungry. The average weight has, for every individual has gone down many pounds, kilograms. There is real shortages of any basic supplies, gasoline, everything. It's a disaster. And they're harassing the press and closed down independent outlets, taking over hundreds of private businesses. What did they do? They increased money supplies, borrowed, out of control, and I know I can hear people saying, "Oh, Mark, you're just being alarmist. Let's not be so ridiculous." Well, I would say this, Madam Speaker. Open your eyes. Open your eyes to what's happening in Canada today. How many rights and freedoms have been sidelined in our society because of COVID and responding to medical needs and safety? But who would have believed? Who would have believed we'd be in the situation we're at right now a year and a bit ago? I don't think anybody. Borders are virtually closed. In British Columbia, which I am a member of parliament there, you can't travel. You're not supposed to travel outside of your health authority. Places of worship have been closed. The inability to see your family, to attend funerals, weddings, to people dying alone, suicides. The problems are there, and people are afraid. People are afraid, and I know a lot of people. I personally know a lot of people who have COVID. I have an uncle that's passed also from it, so I'm not saying this is not real. It is very real. But who would imagine that we're in a situation? I wouldn't imagine here being in this house speaking to, there are a few people here, okay? And a few are in the virtual world. But who would imagine this situation? So why am I talking about this right now, Madam Speaker? It's because I'm talking about the budget. I'm talking about the problems that could happen to Canada. To Canada. We couldn't imagine losing the freedoms that we've lost right now. We couldn't imagine this a year and a half ago. I don't think these other nations that were so high and doing so well could possibly have imagined how their economy collapsed. That can happen in Canada. It can happen in Canada. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's not kid ourselves. This is serious business. I was reading about the Fraser Institute. They're saying, I know I hear an oh no there, but you know what? I think they say that actually only 12% of the finances are actually, of the budget is actually going to directly support COVID measures. The rest is, what is it? It's pre-election pandering, a lot of this. And I know that there's some really good stuff. It sounds really good. I may get to this in a bit. For example, the child care provisions. The only thing with the child care provisions is that they've been promised since 1993 under Chrétien and Martin, under all the Liberals, it's always been promised, but does it ever show up? Okay, I know that, and I have no doubt they will have some, they will get a bottle of wine and open up a few spots where they will actually open up for child care. But that's what this is. I was talking to a member of parliament a year ago, and I said, don't be surprised if we're not meeting in a few months. I was actually thinking a few weeks, because I knew that I was watching about what's happening with COVID, and he looked at me like I was crazy. and I phoned my kids. They're talking about buying a place, and I said, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody this right there, because they're going to wonder. But I recommend you stock up. 1 minute? Madam Speaker, that's not fair. You mean 10 minutes? 9 minutes. I've spoken. That can't be. Anyways, okay. Anyway, we're going to talk about. Hey, Madam Speaker, let me speak about another nation a little closer to home. How about Canada? Well, let's talk about Canada. Oh, okay. Well, Canada. Let's talk about Prime Minister Trudeau, #1, PEA. Okay.
Member, he's not to use the name of the Prime Minister or any other MPs in the House, and he's got 30 seconds to wrap up.
It's my time, because you didn't speak, Madam Speaker, so I need that time. I want to talk about the first Prime Minister that's related to the current Prime Minister. Anyways, when his government starts spending way more revenues than they can receive, large deficits, increasing debt, federal spending became 20% of the economy, Madam Speaker. You know what now? It's 30% now. high debt crisis, high inflation, 650,000 people in employment, inflation at 12%, unemployment at 12%, lending rates 8.
Unfortunately, the honourable member's time is up.